Welcome back to A Simple Low Carb Life. We are on Module 12, Video 2, and we are still discussing maintenance strategies. So if you are still actively in weight loss, you can certainly watch this, that's your prerogative, but these strategies are specifically for people who are no longer wanting to lose weight. So if you employ these strategies, you will stop losing weight. So again, this is for maintenance. So, we've just learned about a strategy of finding our own personal carb level, and I'm going to assume that you've already been trying to do that since our previous video. And so, now that you've added a few carbs back into your life, how are you feeling so far? These are questions that you need to ask yourself all along the way as you add 5 additional carbs for a whole week. You need to ask constantly, how are you feeling? Are you hungry? Are you craving? Do you find yourself fantasizing and daydreaming about carbs? You shouldn't be. If you are, then you've exceeded your carb level. So if you are, what you need to do as a strategy is to back up by at least 5 grams of net carbs or even more until the hunger and cravings go away. So if you have increased your carbs slowly at 5 grams a week additional as you've been instructed, then dropping them by 5 will probably land you right into your personal carb level if you're no longer having hunger and cravings once you've dropped them. So that's how you can find your personal carb level, and that is a number well worth knowing and well worth maintaining, because when you veer too far off of that in terms of going too high, you can always go lower, and that's perfectly fine. But if you go higher than that, then you are very, very likely to start having hunger, cravings, go off the wagon, and gain weight, which you don't want to do. Now, after all that hard work, you certainly don't want to sabotage yourself. So, have you found your personal carb level? And again, that is the level that keeps you comfortable, not gaining weight, free of hunger or cravings. So, again, note that level. That is where you want to hang out in terms of how many carbs you can have every day and on average. So, you might be asking yourself, what role does fat play in all of this? Well, as you remember, we've only held back a little bit on fat intake so that we could burn from our own fat stores. Well, now that you've lost the weight, you don't have to back up on the fat any longer. So now you want to have enough fat that you feel satiated or not hungry and feel satisfied, but not so much that you gain weight. So it's really, really important to not live low carb and low fat simultaneously, or you will be hungry. And usually, when that happens, people pick up carbs instead of fat, or both simultaneously. And it's also not healthy to eat carbs and fat simultaneously because it's way too much fat, because the carbs will turn to fat. And that particular type of fat you need to not have in your life. So, very, very important to maintain at least 3 to 5 tablespoons per day or more if you need it of healthy fats in your diet. So you don't have to have tons and tons of fat. You don't have to eat a stick of butter every day, and that's not what you need to do. A little bit of fat goes a very, very long way. So you just want to feel satisfied, not overly full. If you eat too much fat, it actually can cause indigestion, so it usually is self-limiting. Um, so really keep track of this. You may need a little more of it, you may need a little less to feel satisfied, but essentially you want to make sure that you're, I would say, at minimum getting in 3 tablespoons a day of healthy fats. Um, you will, if you were looking at tracking in MyFitnessPal, they give you a pie chart of your percentage of macronutrients. So much percent fat, so much percent carbohydrates, so much percent protein. Well, you will want fat to be the highest percentage of your diet, with protein and carbohydrates being the smallest. Actually, carbohydrates being the very smallest. So you will be aiming for your dietary fat to be somewhere in the 60 to 80% range, depending on how many carbs you're eating. If you're the lower in carbs, the more fat you can eat. So don't be alarmed by that. That is a healthy construct of a diet and will keep their weight off. Because if you're lowering other macronutrients, others have to rise up or you're going to be hungry. And the only macronutrient, meaning macronutrients are fat, carbs, and protein, that does not make our blood sugar go up is fat. And so that's the one that we get to play with. Eating healthy fats in the right amounts will help you to feel satisfied. And just remember that every single cell in your body has a membrane, a structure surrounding it that is made up of fat and protein. So you have to have fat in your diet or you can become very ill, which is what's happened to our culture in the last 50 some years. Is we've eliminated fat and created a whole host of diseases because of it, including obesity. So if you increase your dietary fat, you won't be hungry. You'll stop losing weight. You'll maintain your weight easily, and you won't be hungry as you're doing it. And if you're satisfied and not hungry, then you'll have no desire to overeat protein or carbs like you were driven to do when you were in the high carbohydrate diet. So just remember, savor the fat, don't smother the food. You just need a little bit of fat to help you to not be hungry. So the big question that everyone has in their mind when they end any type of a diet, but especially as a low carb diet, what do I do if I want to eat a high carb food? So how do I manage that? So that is the really big elephant in the room. So I'm going to tell you some strategies as to how you can manage that without going off the rails and letting carbs creep back into your life and gaining a bunch of weight. So the very best strategy for eating any high carb food, and here are things obviously that most people like: pasta, rice, potatoes, wheat products, pizza, bread, more of a variety in portions of fruit, nuts, etc. You want to eat very small portions. Will help to keep them from coming back in mass in your life. So what portion size are we talking about? I would say the rule of thumb would be 1/4 of a cup, and I know that sounds like a ridiculously small amount, and it is, but you want to think of those high carb foods as the amount of what would be a garnish on a plate in a restaurant. So if you eat that amount, it's not going to be enough carbs typically in any given scenario to make your blood sugar go up so high that you get this massive dumping of insulin from your pancreas, which is the thing we want to always, always avoid. From now on, the rest of your life, you want to avoid cranking out lots of insulin, which will set you back into that same pattern of insulin production, fat storage, locking it down, and it won't be able to be used. And you'll just keep gaining weight and gaining weight. So we do not want to get back on that little train ride. So essentially 1/4 of a cup of whatever high carb thing that you want to eat is usually a sufficient amount that will prevent all of that from going into play again. So you want to limit that to also 1 day a week, not an all-day pig fest of carbs, but one meal, 1 day a week. And what I would say works best for most people is to pick the day and stick with that day, unless you're going somewhere to an event, and then don't eat high carbs on that day and your usual day. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say Saturday, and typically it is a weekend that people want to have their little indulgence. Let's say that Saturday is your day and you're invited to a wedding on Wednesday. Well, I would have your little small piece of cake or whatever it is that you want that's high carb at that wedding, but I would not also have it on Saturday. I would skip that Saturday and wait until the following Saturday. And you are very unlikely to have carbs creep back into your life regularly if you do that. So, very important thing to not allow this to creep in daily. Keep it to a specific day of the week and 1/4 of a serving size, and not have multiple items. One item be your extra carb for that day or that week. If you need to change the day of the week, again, use that day instead of your usual day, but not both. Now, what about exercise? Now, exercise has an important role in maintenance for sure, because we're wanting you to continue to have improved insulin sensitivity so that your cells will respond to insulin and use up any carbs that you may have in your diet. So exercise is one way to do that. Uh, and so you want to spend at least 10 minutes on resistance training a day and 20 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. So 30 minutes a day is what you want to aim for. Hopefully by now you've seen the importance of it and you've carved that into your daily schedule. And I would not let anything interrupt that. You want to keep that habit because you will keep your weight off. Now, let's say that you do not have time for 30 minutes a day, but you definitely need to get in your resistance training every day and aim for at least 20 minutes of cardiovascular exercise at least 3 to 5 times a week. 5 times ideally. But if you can only get in 3, that's still better than 0. And again, if you employ the strategy of high interval intensity training, where you go as hard as you can, as fast as you can for 30 seconds on whatever exercise you're doing, whether it's a bicycle or running or jumping jacks or whatever, at explosive blast for 30 seconds, and then slow walking if you're running, for example. Run like a sprinter, an Olympic sprinter for 30 seconds. If you're doing this right, you're going to feel almost like you're going to throw up. And then for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you want to walk and go at a very slow pace. And then do that cycle again, 30 seconds, hard and as fast as you can, and then rest for another 2 to 3 minutes walking slowly. If you can get 20 minutes of that type of exercise, you have really done a significant amount of exercise, and it's really more beneficial than if you did an hour's worth of just one straight rhythm of running on a treadmill. That is the wave of the future, doing high intensity interval training. Exercise, again, will help to keep your cells receptive to insulin signals and help you to maintain your weight. When we are not moving around and we're not exercising, we develop more insulin resistance. So we are designed as humans to move around. We're not designed really to sit at a desk all day. We've evolved into this blob-like human that sits around all day, and we're really not designed for that. So getting up and moving around is extremely important. So again, be sure to keep that 30-minute workout as part of your day and make it a habit. Another strategy that will help to keep you on track and keep you away from eating off-plan high-carb foods is to have low-carb recipes in your home that will keep delicious variety in your diet. For me personally, that is the absolute key to keeping me from trolling bakeries and restaurants that have the traditional high-carb foods that I used to enjoy. I honestly do not feel like I'm giving up anything with my current way of eating because I have spent the time to experiment with recipes and have really enriched my life more than I was before in the high carb world, because a lot of these foods are so delicious because you're adding more fat. And if you think about the foods we crave, most of them, whether they're sweet or not, contain a considerable amount of fat. Ice cream's a fine example of that. Very, very high in fat, also high in sugar, the way that it's made in stores, but you can make it in a low carb fashion, and everyone seems to love ice cream. It's the fat that we're after. And so if you incorporate those same strategies in your recipes at home, and there are literally millions of them out there, then you will feel more satisfied and not be trolling for high carb foods. You won't need to look anywhere else. So if you go back to review Module 7, you can find some great recipe sites, and I won't go over that again, but essentially you can look at our Pinterest boards, our Facebook page, and we're going to give you the links here in a minute. But you can also visit our website, and we have an always adding content to our recipe sites and our blog pages that will give you more ideas on where you can get great recipes that are low carb. And usually low carb recipes are so easy to make because if you're baking, for example, they're all quick breads and very quickly whip up, whereas you're not dealing with yeast and the need to rise and to knead the dough and all of that takes so much time. So if I can do it, anyone can, because believe you me, I was no cook or chef prior to starting the low carb way of living. So, what happens if you start to gain weight, even if you're going through all of these tips and guidelines? Let's say you're eating the level amount of protein, you found your personal carb level, you're not hungry, you're not craving, you're eating some extra fat, you're exercising 30 minutes a day. What if you start gaining weight? What's happening? Well, first off, if you can't quickly assess where you have gone awry, what I would suggest you do, if you gain 2 or 3 pounds and you're up that in 1 week, I would have alarm bells and whistles going off in your brain and get that extra 2 to 3 pounds off and correct your course right away before it becomes 30 pounds. It's so much easier to lose 2 to 3 pounds serially. What that means is if you need to lose 2 or 3 pounds 3 times a year, that's vastly better than losing 10 pounds all at once. It's much easier. So what I would suggest that you do is simply, when this happens, go right back to 30 grams of net carbs per day, cut your fat back a little bit, keep your protein the same level, and do that for a week to get your appetite and your weight back under control. You're probably going to lose that 2 to 3 pounds in that week. Then you want to slowly start out like you did when you first started maintenance and increase your carbs by 5 grams of net carbs for a week. Go from 30 to 35, then 35 to 40, and so on. So it may take you another month or two, depending on how high your carb level had become, to get back to where you were. And it may just simply be that you had exceeded your carb level and just needed to back up a little bit. So again, it is best not to exceed 75 grams of net carbs a day, because if you're a person that's gained enough weight that you needed our services, then you are, by definition, insulin resistant. And people who have insulin resistance are not tolerant of a high amount of carbs. So I would say no one should eat more than 100 grams of carbs a day, because if they do, they will have unstable blood sugar, typically. And so if you're a person that's gained weight, you don't even get to be in that category where you can have that generous amount of carbs, because your body can't handle that amount efficiently, because you're not putting out enough insulin that's receptive to that the cells are receptive to. So to avoid all of the many problems that go along with insulin resistance, besides weight gain, you want to not exceed 75 grams a day on a regular basis. And again, if you use the strategy of adding some extra carbs 1 day a week, that's how you manage that, what we discussed today. Now, you've done all of that. You're still gaining weight. You're still stuck. So what do you do? Well, we have specialized one-on-one weight loss coaching that's available to you, and you will be working with a seasoned weight loss expert that can help to guide you to success with your very own unique set of circumstances if you need that. And if at any point during your weight loss you get stuck and you can't figure out what to do, we have a variety of one-on-one plans, including email only, that are much more reasonable cost-wise. And really our goal is to make this affordable for the average person, so that you don't have to spend $400 a month to go to a medical weight loss clinic and get all sorts of pills and shots and concoctions that are frankly gimmicks. I used to work in that scenario, and a lot of it is just not appropriate, if you ask me. And so we don't want to have you feeling like only the wealthiest of people can have one-on-one weight loss. And so we're trying to make this as affordable as we can. So if you get stuck, just simply shoot us an email. You can look on our services page and on the link on the screen and see if there's a plan that would work for you. And we'd be happy to help you at whatever level you feel that you can afford or that you need. All right, guys, can you believe it? We have gone through the entire program, including maintenance, and you've completed all of the modules and the videos. Now, if you're a person that has not started the diet yet because you wanted to look at all the videos first and see what you were in for, that's perfectly fine. You may need to go back and review them as you go along. But what you can do next to put this all together, we do have a short video that's included in your package that kind of will direct you as to how to put this all together and how to use the program. Also refer to your guidebook that you've received in PDF format when you ordered this series as part of your package. And you can certainly go back and rewatch any of the modules or videos that you need to at any time, because as long as you want to view them, they are available for you. You can pause them at any time and capture a screenshot if you have specific questions about things, or if you want to basically use a specific screenshot and save it as a PDF where you can use it as a means to copy a link. Please feel free to do so. This is yours to use however you see fit. And we also want to wish you the very, very best on your new, simple, low-carb life. We are very grateful that you have chosen to use your time and spend your time with us. We know that there are a lot of options out there for weight loss, and we hope that you have found this very simple, very easy, and very informative. Our goal is to help you to become healthy, and we certainly hope that that has been the case for you. Also, we'd appreciate it very much if you would go to our Facebook page and click the Like Us button, the little thumbs up, and that would really help us, and we appreciate that very much. And if you go to our Pinterest boards, we would appreciate if you pin any of our content onto your Pinterest boards so that you can save it for later and allow others to see it. You can also visit our website, our blog, our recipes regularly for more free information that will help you to stay on track in your low-carb lifestyle. So, guys, we really appreciate your being with us and look forward to working with you in the future and wish you the very best. Have a nice, simple, low-carb life.